Awaiting U.S. job reports analysis http://nTV4x.com News ID 90-2F987 2020 10:14:20 AM Notes Observations Heighten US-China trade tensions Jun Production suggesting country recovering a bit faster than initially expected but remain significantly below its pre-crisis level Focus on U.S. jobs report ANS impact on markets S&amp 500 only approximate 1% away from record close NBSP Asia-China July trade balance $62.3 billion v $42.6 b exports YY 7.2% v 0.7% e imports YY 1.4% v 0.9% e Japan Jun Household Spending YY 1.2% 7.8% e 9th straight decline Japan June labor cash earnings YY 1.7% v 3.0% e RBA Statement on monetary policy SOMP reiterated stance that would not increase the OCR target until their progress towards full employment and inflation targets. Maintained December 2020 GDP growth forecast at 6.0% while cutting June 2021 GDP growth from 7.0 to 4.0%. Also cut its December 2021 GDP growth from 6.0% to 5.0%. RBA assist Gov Ellis baseline scenario assumed infection rates subside in Australia. No more lockdowns. It would take many years for GDP to return to pre-coronavirus levels. Inability of US to control virus was a worry. Virus to weigh on US growth for some time. NBSP coronavirus total global cases 19,025,581.5% DD total deaths 713.9 K 1.0% DD NBSP America's President Trump signed executive orders addressing threat posed by WeChat and TikTok. Effective September 20, any company that fails to comply being subject to sanctions. Press Trump confirmed re-imposing some tariffs on Canadian aluminum industry citing Canada producers had broken their commitments. Treasury Secretary Nukin lots of issues are close to a compromise on but remain very far apart on some significant issues. The president's first choice is to do a deal but he alternatives in executive orders. White House Chief of Staff Meadows if we don't reach a top-line number in these talks, there is very little incentive to have further talks. House Speaker Pelosi we remain very far apart. NBSP speakers fixed income FX commodities Iratum equities indices STOXX 6000 0.49% at 360.70. FTSE 0.43% at 6000.75. DAX 0.47% 12,532.65. CAC 40 0.73% at 4,849.70, IBEX 35 0.93% at 6,889.00, FTSE MIB 1.04% at 19,273.50, SME 0.18% at 10,049.00, S&amp 500 futures 0.57% market focal points key themes European indices open mixed but turned down into the red as the session progressed SME being notable exception trading higher outperforming sectors include telecom and healthcare underperforming sectors include materials and consumer discretionary risk off sentiment after President Trump signs order blocking WeChat and TikTok. Reportedly Moderna gets contract for 4.5 m does of vaccine from Switzerland. Reportedly BP considering significant asset sale. Avacta enters collaboration to develop COVID test. Reportedly Neptune Energy considering some of NIS assets. Earnings expected in the upcoming U.S. session include Magna, Clear Channel, Dish Network, and Ameren. NBSP equities Energy Petroleum Geoservices PGS.NO 33% offer healthcare Hikma Pharmaceuticals HIK.UK 10% earnings industrials Scapa SCPA.UK 24% trading update Airbus Air FR 1.5% deliveries Udakumpu OUT 1F.FI 10% earnings Technology Wirecard WDI.DE 3% Singapore charges NBSP speakers Bo S. Ramsden stated that gilt yields were extraordinarily low. Debt was a necessary response to pandemic. Reiterated Bo stance that negative rates were in the toolkit but not needed at this time. Bo had no plans to purchase equities and Equity F's UK Chancellor of the Exchequer Sunak Finman stated that remained confident that a Brexit deal was possible. Reiterates government stance that not fair to extend furlough indefinitely as the program was not sustainable in the long run. There was hardship ahead for many people and should be helping them for new opportunities. UK to borrow a significant amount for cost of support. Germany econ min alt May a rise in domestic virus infection rate threatens economic recovery. Russia central bank official Tremezov reiterated CBR stance that had room to lower rates. Poland central bank S. Kropotnicki hawk mild rate hikes would not harm domestic economy. Saudi Arabia and Iraq reaffirmed commitment to OPEC production cut agreement. Reminder reports circulated that Iraq was planning additional cut of 400 kbd production in August to compensate for overproduction in prior OPEC agreement. NBSP currencies fixed income USD saw some retracement in its recent losing trend, aided by some renewed trade tensions between US-China. Euro USD recent rally suggesting some signs of fatigue, with 1.20 area proving to be formidable resistance for the time being. Dealers cited that potential derailing of the budding economic recovery in Europe as a factor, with Spain, Germany, and France all recording jumps in the number of people infected with the virus during the course of the week. NBSP economic data. NL Netherlands June manufacturing production industrial sales YY 8.5% v 21.8% prior to. Germany June current account balance A 22.4 BV A 15.0 B trade balance A 15.6 BV A 11.3 B exports 14.9% v 14.4% E imports 7.0% v 10.6% E to. Germany June industrial production 8.9% v 8.2% EYY 11.7% v 11.4% E5 Finland June preliminary trade balance A 0.2 BV A 0.3 B prior. DK Denmark June industrial production 4.0% v 3.0% prior. ZA South Africa July net reserves $48.1 billion v $46.3 B gross. Official reserves $57.9 billion v $53.0 B. No Norway June industrial production 2.2% v 0.9% prior. YY 3.1% v 3.1% prior. No Norway June manufacturing production 0.4% v 3.0% prior. YY 7.2% v 8.2% prior. No Norway June credit indicator growth YY % v 4.6% prior. FR France June industrial production 12.7% v 8.4% EYY 11.7% v 12.9% EFR France June manufacturing production 14.4% v 13.0% EYY 12.5% v 13.3% EFR France June trade balance A 8.0 BV A 7.5 B prior. Current account balance A 8.4 BV A 8.5 B prior. FR France Q2 preliminary private sector payrolls QQ 0.6% v 2.5% prior. ES Spain June industrial production 14.0% v 10.0% EYY 14.0% v 15.2% E industrial production NSA UNA YY 9.6% v 27.8% prior. ES Spain June house transactions YY 34.3% v 53.7% prior. CH Swiss July foreign currency reserves 845.0 billion Swiss francs v 851.1 B prior. At Austria July wholesale price index 0.9% v 1.4% prior. YY 4.6% v 5.1% prior. Hungary June preliminary trade balance A 0.7 B v A 0.4 B. Malaysia and July foreign reserves $104.2 billion v $104.0 billion. Mid-month reading SE Sweden July budget balance 34.4 billion Swedish kronor v 56.5 B prior. UK July Halifax house price index 1.6% v 0.1% prior. 3MY 3.8% v 2.5% prior. CN weekly Shanghai copper inventories SHFE 172.5 K v 159.5 K tons prior. CN China July foreign reserves $3.154 TV $3.140 TE fourth straight increase. RU Russian narrow money supply WE July 31st rub 13.00 TV 13.03 T prior. IT Italy June total trade balance A 6.2 BVA 5.6 B prior. Trade balance EU A 1.6 BVA 1.5 B prior. TW Taiwan July Trade balance $5.4 billion v $4.2 b exports YY 0.4% v 1.4% e imports YY 6.8% v 3.1% ECZ check July international reserves $157.8 billion v $151.4 billion prior CN China Q2 preliminary current account $119.6 billion v $33.7 billion prior GR Greece July CPI YY 1.8% v 1.6% prior CPI EU harmonized YY 2.1% v 1.9% prior GR Greece June industrial production YY 4.9% v 7.5% prior is Iceland July preliminary trade balance ISK 12.4 BVA 12.9 B prior SG Singapore July foreign reserves $BV $312.5 billion prior NBSP fixed income issuance in India. Sold total INR 340B versus INR 300B indicated in 2025, 2034, and 2050 bonds NBSP looking ahead IT Bank of Italy balance sheet aggregates 0530 ZA South Africa to sell combined ZAR 2.0B in IL 2029. 2046 and 2050 bonds 0600 PT Portugal June trade balance no ESTVA 0.9B prior 0600 IE Ireland July live register monthly level no ESTV 14.2K prior live register level no ESTV 213.7K prior 0600 UK DMO to sell A 3.0B in 1 month, 3 month and 6 month bills A 0.5B. A 1.0B and A 1.5B respectively 0645 US. Daily Libor fixing 0700 MX Mexico July CPI 0.7% EV 0.6% prior YY 3.6% EV 3.3% prior CPI core 0.4% EV 0.4% prior 0730 in India weekly forex reserve WE July 31 no ESTV $522.6 billion prior 0800 PL Poland July official reserves no ESTV $129.1 billion prior 0800 BR Brazil July IBGE inflation IPCA 0.4% EV 0.3% prior YY 2.3% EV 2.1% prior 0800 CL Chile July CPI 0.1% EV 0.1% prior YY 2.5% EV 2.6% prior 0800 UK Daily Baltic Dry Bulk Index 0800 in India announces upcoming bill issuance. Held on Wed 0830 US July change in non-farm payrolls 1.48 MV 4.800 M prior change in private payrolls 1.18 MV 4.767 M prior change in manufacturing payrolls 261K EV 356K prior 0830 US July unemployment rate 10.6% EV 11.1% prior underemployment rate no ESTV 18.0% prior participation rate 61.8% EV 61.5% prior 0830 US July average hourly earnings 0.5% EV 1.2% prior YY 4.2% EV 5.0% prior average weekly hours 34.4 EV 34.5 prior 0830 CA Canada July net change in employment 390.0 KV 952.9 K. Prior unemployment rate 11.1% EV 12.3% prior full-time employment change no ESTV 488.1 K prior part-time employment change no ESTV 464.8 K prior participation rate 64.5% EV 63.8% prior hourly wage rate YY 5.2% EV 6.8% prior 0830 CL Chile July trade balance $0.7 BV $1.4 billion prior total exports no ESTV $5.4 billion prior total imports no ESTV 4.0 B prior copper exports no ESTV 2.7 B prior 0830 CL Chile July international reserves no ESTV $36.4 billion prior 0900 RU Russia July official reserve assets 575.0 BV $568.9 billion prior 10.00 US June final wholesale inventories MM 2.0% EV 2.0% prelim wholesale trade sales no ESTV 5.4% prior 10.00 CA Canada July IV Purchasing Managers Index seasonally adjective no ESTV 58.2 prior PMI UNA no ESTV 62.9 prior 11.00 EU potential sovereign ratings after European close Czech Republic sovereign debt to be rated by Moody's Russia sovereign debt to be rated by Fitch 13.00 US weekly Baker Hughes rig count 15.00 US June consumer credit $10.0 BV $18.3 billion prior. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me mt5.expert.advisors.